This is Radio Bocconi.
Estáis escuchando Radio Bocconi.
Get ready.
We're from Radio Bocconi, and this afternoon we attended your conference. The first one is about the traditional monetary stimulation programs, which many influent economists say they won't work anymore. Do you believe this is really happening, or it's just a momentary economic stagnation?
I think the threat of stagnation is real, and it's partly to do with the perverse impact of quantitative easing, monetary stimulus, because it is turning some returns on capital negative to the tune of 9 trillion and rising. The other reason is because I think that we can't reap the benefits of the productivity revolution. We invent new processes, we invent new machines. We've gone through 25 years of the most revolutionary change in technology for 200 years, and yet we go on creating jobs that don't need to exist. And so it means productivity doesn't rise. Now, I think that I don't call for the end of quantitative easing. I call for its democratization. And I think this is not just a question of principle. In Britain, we just did 60 billion extra on top of 375 billion done in 2009. So 60 billion now to avoid a crash under Brexit. 50 billion for government bonds, 10 billion for corporate bonds. I would take this 60 billion, I would buy every student loan in the country, it would need 70, and then I would bury those student loans for 30 years with no repayments. What would happen? Immediately, every ex-student, some are in their 30s now, would lose the line in their paycheck that says student loan. So you put money immediately into the economy, but it's not like the helicopter money of simply dropping into people, because it rewards innovation. It rewards the fact they went to college. It rewards the fact that they have paid back some of the money already. I would also print more, and I will use it to fund infrastructure projects. It is efficient to do it this way when interest rates are zero, but it's effectively the same as borrowing it. The right-wing economists will now howl and say, no, you can't print money. You can. The walls between fiscal and monetary policy are falling, and we need to stave off stagnation. And all we're doing by doing this is buying time. The real change has to be at the level of structural reform that allows us to start automating things, that allows us to start reducing inequality and creating high skills that could fill some of the jobs we could then create. In a country like Britain, you see very, very little of this.
Talking about the future you predicted, how do you see the private property? Will it still exist, and in which forms?
What is private property? If you use a zip car, it's the property of the company. If you use Airbnb, you're sharing your property. In a way, the capitalist sharing economy has taught us, are we obsessed with private property? I actually don't think we are as a generation. We're prepared to share it more. Gone are the days when, like, every young guy wants a big red sports car, because I think we realise that there are more important things. Okay, now, what is Wikipedia? It's a company which is effectively the private property of Jimmy Wales, but it's also a shared economic space between 27,000 people who write for it and millions of people who read it, where no money changes hands. It doesn't fit into the world of divided between state and market. It's something else. And I think what I want to do, post-capitalism, is very simply the expansion of that something else, the expansion of non-market, collaborative, free production, out of the realms of kind of niche, kind of a sideline, into the center of the economy. And so, yes, there will always be a market. Yes, for a very long time there'll be a market, and therefore there'll be private property. And yes, there will always be a state, and the state will be a different form of property.
Thank you. Just take, for example, Facebook. Facebook recently reached a market cap of $368 billion. In contrast with only its 17 billion in revenues and $3 billion in net profit. Yeah. Do you think this is related only to the enormous amount of people connected in a single platform, or there's more?
Facebook's market capitalization reflects its monopoly position. If the European Union was doing its job, it would knock on the door of Facebook tomorrow and said, you are now 4 companies. These 4 companies must trade with each other without penalty. That anybody who is a user can, I don't care what you want to call them, Facebook 1, 3, 4, but they must compete with each other. Soon what would happen is that the combined market cap of those companies will be less than 380 billion, because it will become obvious that they can't monopolize forever. If there are 4 banks in every country, at least 4, why are there not 4 Facebooks? I can transfer my money from one bank to another in 24 hours in Britain. Why can't I transfer my data from Facebook to another company? It's not possible. So we just enforce competition law. Modern capitalism can't see the point of that. Modern capitalism is in thrall to these super monopolies, and it can only end badly because the implication of this massive share price compared to revenue is that revenue comes from somewhere eventually. Can't come from advertising. Who's going to have, wages are stagnant. Who's going to advertise? Where people think it will come from, whether they're working for Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, is that sooner or later these giant monopolies will reach right down into our everyday lives, and they will provide our healthcare and our transport and our education. We have the power to say no to that. And by saying no, we can very quickly bring realism to the share prices of all these companies.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Grazie.
Buonasera.
Music.